Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam tasliman kathira. I would like to thank everybody for coming to our beautiful live stream program today. And the title of the program is I Can't Breathe. Are you part of the problem or the solution? My name is Jesse Maroney. I am the program coordinator for Link Outside, which is our prison outreach program here at IOC. This is a collaboration between the IOC Youth Committee, which is YEP, Youth Empowerment Program, also to the Dawah Outreach Committee, which is headed up by Jamal Zaheen, and also to Link Outside, which is in collaboration, or we're in collaboration with me and Jesse Maroney, and also to Amini Shaker here today. Alhamdulillah. I just want to make a quick announcement quickly before we get into what the program is actually about. There's also two comments that you obviously have on Facebook and the YouTube platforms. So we encourage all the viewers here today to comment, to put up any questions or concerns that they may have, and also to, if they could possibly mention how Link Outside, the Dawah Outreach Committee, or also to the Youth Empowerment Program has actually impacted them in their personal lives today here while we're going on with this subject. Alhamdulillah, just to kind of give a quick little bio of who I am Jesse Maroney. I'm the program coordinator for Link Outside. I've been in the program for about 4.5 years now. Alhamdulillah, I was previously incarcerated myself, where I actually took my shahada within the incarcerated space in Connecticut. I moved from Connecticut over here to study Islam in a deeper space within my life. And alhamdulillah, and I met the Islamic Institute of Orange County community here. And alhamdulillah, it's been a great pivotal change within my life, not only to give back to the same community that I came from and where my Islam originated from, but also to change myself personally, for my own personal growth and development, and for my Islamic education, and just for my family just in general, alhamdulillah. So we see that the program subject is I can't breathe. Are you part of the problem or the solution? All right, everybody, unless you haven't really been active on social media, or as some people would say, you're under a rock, knows about the I can't breathe slogan or the term. And this is coming from what unfortunately happened to George Floyd, and also to Eric Garner even before that, and what's happened actually to most, if not many, people within the actual African-American community through the course of the history of America in and of itself. That there has been a suffocating effect, not only physically, but also to socially, emotionally, economically, politically, that has been within the African-American community, and the different systematic things that have been put in place, what they call systematic racism, that have been put in place to kind of suffocate the growth and development of the community overall. And so, alhamdulillah, the reason why we have put this up here today is because we want to kind of see where we are as a community, or see where we are, not just personally, but also as a community, in addressing this problem. And are we here in Orange County and just all over the world as Muslims, are we part of the problem or the solution? And we want to kind of chime in through a few of our guests today in their actual personal experience, and also to some of the work that they've done, to see how we are addressing the situation, get their opinion, also to some of the great work that they're doing that's actually countering some of the systemic racism that's actually embedded within the fabric of the American community overall. So alhamdulillah, I want to introduce a dear friend of mine, and also to a colleague that I hold very dearly, and that's helped me out quite a bit in my personal life, but also in developing the prison outreach program that is so much needed, because it's helping not only people who are incarcerated, but also many of them are minorities, and they're a minority within a minority, meaning that they're already in a minority category, but also they are minorities because they are Muslim. So alhamdulillah, he's a dear friend of mine named Amini Shaker. He's helped to build Link Outside to a one-of-a-kind inmate programming and services using the skills that he's picked up from working at the corporate Fortune 500 company. He's helped manage the many services Link Outside's offered to incarcerated individuals, and raises awareness of the program to the outside community. What he enjoys most about Link Outside is seeing how the program has dynamically affected people, and also to the follow-up with brothers getting out and sisters getting out and transitioning into society. So I will pass the mic, or pass the torch, to my man Amini Shaker, inshallah ta'ala, and I'll let him go from there.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon you and everybody. Again, thank you for joining us today. And this is, I believe, a very important topic that is, I would say, very relevant to the work that we do. And obviously, we have a lot of great topics to discuss. And I don't really want to take too much time, but I just want to spend the first few minutes for folks to get a little bit of understanding of what Link Outside is, if you haven't heard about it already. So for those of you who don't know, Link Outside is IIOC's full-time prison outreach program. It's one of the few, if I'm not mistaken, one of the few comprehensive programs that exist across the country, where anybody who is incarcerated, from the time they're arrested, they're getting sentenced, they're coming eventually home, inshallah, that our program, by the permission of Allah, we're able to provide services throughout that entire step. And I just want to just show a couple of pictures. Some of them actually we haven't even released before. So, and I want also Jesse to comment, because some of these pictures might bring back some memories. So a little bit. So what we'll go ahead and take a look at. One of the things that people ask us is, what Link? How does it look like to be doing the work that you do? Because a lot of this stuff is kind of private, because you have to get cleared to go to these prisons. So this is a first picture. This is something that we see on a daily basis. We get, these are actual prison letters that come to us. I don't know, Jesse, you can tell me how, about how many come in a week, how many come in a month, but it's a lot. It's not, we're not talking about one or two here and there. There's tons of letters just coming in. These are actually some really nice ones also on the side too. So you see some illustrations. So these are really very talented brothers and sisters who actually have a lot of gifts to share. Not only in Deen, but here in this case, art. Just wanted to just highlight some of those. Really touching that the person took the time to really put these together. But let's go to the next picture here. So this is actually one of many prison visits that we've done. We actually have, in this case, almost close to about 20 brothers that joined us at a local Orange County jail that we did a visit in Ramadan. Obviously, this Ramadan, everything was shut down, but it gives you an idea of really the many faces that make Link Outside. It's not just me, it's not just Jesse. There's so many people behind the scenes that help make this work possible. And so this is just an example of some of the individuals that really make our program the way it is. Let's now, Jesse, I want you to comment on this next picture right here, because we're going to go back to a really special time.
Oh, mashallah. that was Salinas Valley State Prison. Oh yeah, okay, yeah, alhamdulillah. This is a special moment, because this is actually one of the first initial visits that I did outside of Folsom State Prison. This was with Chaplain Lawal, which we're good friends with. And this is actually a community that is very neglected overall in the Muslim community, especially in California, because they are in the Central Valley area, and there's not a lot of people that go there and actually volunteer. Alhamdulillah, there's a really powerful brother within here. He's actually right next to me. If you take a look at the picture, he's got the kufi on. He's a Mexican brother. His story is so impactful to me every time that I think about it, because he was actually on the verge of actually killing a Muslim when he took his shahada. He was actually on the verge, because one of his relatives had actually gone into Iraq and been killed by a Muslim. And he actually was on the verge of going to stab that person on the yard. And there was a Muslim who stopped him in the process to basically speak to him about Islam and the misinterpretation that man was having at the time. And he ended up not only becoming Muslim, but he's actually the imam at many different facilities. At that facility particularly, he was the actually imam of the rest of the Muslims. So it shows you some of the transformative power that Islam has in and of itself, especially when there's sincerity and there's love, and that even at the brink of actually about to kill somebody, that it was able to turn his heart in a very powerful way. So alhamdulillah, it's really powerful. That was an amazing visit, especially with his story always rings within my heart and within my mind all the time. So alhamdulillah, yeah, it's a beautiful time.
Yeah, and I recognize another brother in that picture. I was taking the train to LA, because for those of you who don't know, my 9 to 5 is in downtown LA. So I was taking the train one day between my lunch break, and a random brother just pulls me and says, "Hey, salam alaikum, brother Amin. You remember me?" And I'll just be honest, I just did not really remember him at that moment. So I'm just like, trying to, hey, I can't forget. I forgot. Can you remind me? Oh, my name is Brother Dawood. I was in that prison visit that you did back, and it was like 2016, and I didn't forget you guys, and I just want to say thank you so much. So imagine like one visit. This was maybe about an hour and a half, but for 4 years, that brother still kept that actual memory alive, and it was a special moment for him. Like, we do so many of these that sometimes we forget, but it was just for me humbling to say, wow, like these, even 1 hour, speaking to somebody, may stay with them for the rest of their life. And I think that's also really powerful too. All right, now I want to go to another really special place. So this is actually a copy of the LA Times. This is not a fake news. This is actually the Los Angeles Times went to us, and they did an article, a full article just about what Link Outside does. So I just want to let you know how proud you should be of this organization, of IOC, that they are. They've sponsored us and supported us for all these years, and this is just one of obviously the support that we get and the reward that we get with our creator is the most important thing. But this is just for me a nice reminder that what, people are actually acknowledging this work. So I wanted to let folks know, if you don't know already, that this has been highlighted in the LA Times. Now, I want to play a really exclusive video. I've never released this before in its entirety. And if you could just please play this real quick, and then I So Jesse, tell us what's happening right here.
Well, alhamdulillah, that's actually one of the different adhkar, the dhikr that one of the shuyukh gave those brothers to help them with anxiety and everything. And obviously, if anybody knows, that's saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that you turn to in repentance, and also to that Rahim, that is specifically merciful to the believers. And this is something that they gifted us as a reminder to us, and also to thanking us, inshallah ta'ala, for coming up there. And there's some pivotal things. There's some very key people in there that have been incarcerated for quite a long time. One of them is actually he was a professional boxer. He used to be a sparring partner for Mike Tyson. He converted to Islam, obviously, later on in his life, and alhamdulillah, he'll be getting out soon. There's another person who was actually a personal bodyguard of Dr. Dre, and also to Suge Knight. And also too, there's some very influential people, especially when it comes to certain transitional rehabilitative programs, such as another brother named Salam, who was a personal student of Sheikh Hamza Yusuf when he used to come to the prisons, and then also to Muhammad Al-Sharif. And he's been very pivotal in starting the Pause for Life program, which has actually completely changed and transformed a lot of people, and also to been a very recognized program within the CDCR itself, and also to out here on the street has given a lot of people a lot of skills and abilities to become their own contractor when it comes to dog training, and also for the police department and many other things. So, but mashallah, it's a place where it's a reminder for me, but also is one of the most beneficial things that I've ever done in my life to actually not only transform myself, but also to help others. And some of those brothers, two of them that were actually pointed out in the Los Angeles Times article, are some of my best friends. The name is Ibn Wali Shakir, and then also to Abdul Qadir. And they
actually, we have a picture, we have a group photo actually, if we can have our if you just go over one more, and we'll be able to see everybody.
Right here. Yeah, so this so I can't really point to, but alhamdulillah, it's these are not just only people that we just went and ministered, but those are my personal friends. And mashallah, they probably introduced more transformative principles. I thought I was going there to teach them, and mashallah, we mutually benefit each other, and they probably taught me more than anything in my life. And also too, I was in that incarcerated space, alhamdulillah, at some point. And also too, so we have Sheikh Muhammad Faqih there, that's there. Also to Amin, also to a couple another volunteer that was there with us too. So alhamdulillah, it's mashallah. So it's a beautiful cause. We need help in these situations, because you see at the bottom that's going across on the advertisement of all the different things that we've done, the amount of book donations that we've done. And be honest with you, it's really just me and Amin in a room together, inshallah ta'ala. So alhamdulillah. So we want to get into our main speaker now, inshallah ta'ala. The brother's name is Malcolm Morgan. He's a native of San Diego, California. So alhamdulillah, he lives in a nice place. He's the author and illustrator of several children's books, including one rap-along story that basically talks about I should have never joined the gang. Brother Malcolm is called, that's his actual name in the community, that's his nickname in the community. He's an organizer at the Pillars of the Community and the outreach person for the movement enrichment program. Brother Malcolm, alhamdulillah, is an expert in the fields of mass incarceration, also to criminal behavior and rehabilitation. So alhamdulillah, we'd like to welcome Brother Malcolm. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu. And alhamdulillah, it's good to have you, akhi.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah.
Inshallah.
Good to be here.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. So I see your passion is in advocating for those who don't have a voice and assisting those who are poor and oppressed. Alhamdulillah. Let me just ask you the question is what? Give me a little brief history about yourself so that we can, alhamdulillah, just kind of get to know who you are a little bit, and then also to just kind of go into this subject a little bit and see how your life in and of itself is part of the subject, actually.
Yeah, I basically grew up, born and raised in San Diego, which is generally perceived to be a pretty nice beach town. But every nice city has its toilet bowl. Well, that's maybe how it's perceived on the outside. It's not a toilet bowl to us. We believe it's a beautiful community. But the southeast area, all the way to Spring Valley, areas I grew up in. And I grew up, a halfway decent child, somewhat misguided, but a decent child who, like a lot of us, got into a life of crime at a fairly young age. And like a lot of young black males, ended up in the criminal justice system. Found myself incarcerated for a number of years. Alhamdulillah, was guided to the Deen of Islam while incarcerated, and really took an interest to want to get involved in the work of social justice, whether it's through education, whether it's through legislation, whether it's through activism, and I came home and got involved with that work, began working with the organization that I'm with right now, which is Pillars of the Community. And alhamdulillah, I've been just thankful to be able to be involved. Alhamdulillah.
MashaAllah. So let me ask you a question. So give me a little bit of a inside picture of kind of what happened, or like what type of dynamic did you go in? Did you have a father in the household? Were a single mother? How was your neighborhood? Was it in the same predicament? How was that whole thing to get you into the whole actual gang atmosphere, or just kind of what was your neighborhood look like, and then how did it push towards? What was the push towards the gang actually?
Yeah, my family from the time I was born, we've pretty much been lower class, pretty poor. Grew up with, my mother and father were married when I was born, but they divorced when I was about 5 years old, maybe. So I basically grew up in a single mother household, which is the norm. For I think the majority of black males and females. Which also one of the huge breakdowns of the community is them being single parent households. There's something unnatural about a family without the polar opposites of the male and the female present. So I grew up poor neighborhoods, the tail end of the 80s, the early 90s. The war on drugs, crack cocaine infested neighborhoods.
Yeah, Reaganomics. Yeah.
So for us, a lot of us were warriors by nature. A lot of us were brave. We were courageous. We just didn't have any cause worth fighting for. So for us, a lot of us, gangs, cliques, those were the only sense of male role models and families that we actually saw available to us. Those were the only senses, the only sources of courage that we had in our community. We had a desire to fight, but we definitely didn't want to join anyone's military. So those organizations were attractive to us.
Gotcha. So it's probably safe to say that through some of the obviously environmental or the community factors, and also through some of the systemic things that probably were put in place, like you said, even with the breakdown of the family, some of those, not maybe in your situation particularly, but some systemic things have been put in place, especially when it comes to like state or federal assistance. There needs to be no actual male within the household or married to actually receive some of that assistance. So a lot of factors that led to what you were actually living in, not just maybe personally what you experienced, but also to what some of your community experience that led to you getting to the point that a gang would maybe satisfy some of the different role model figures you're looking for in your life, huh? Okay. I have a question for you too. All right, so we know that obviously you know got into the gang mentality, gang lifestyle, and everything, and you know you had some courageous aspects to you, which you just explained. So, what led to the particular incarceration? What just like what was the defining moment that led to that, and then also to just if you could explain a little bit about your conversion, just briefly.
Okay, I basically part of my road to incarceration was financial desperation. Looking for ways to earn money with the limited options and opportunities that were there for me. Also, really a culture of, quite frankly, backwardness, where these sort of lifestyles, a lot of criminal activity was glamorized. Just like the old mafia lifestyles and everything else. Actually, this is pretty much American subculture, period. So, gangs, sex trafficking, robberies, all of these things were elevated. It wasn't seen as a strange thing to be engaged in any of these types of behaviors. So any way I could find to make some extra money, to get extra clothes, extra food, this is what I got engaged in. But I got pretty comfortable robbing people, and it was more than just a hustle. It was actually somewhat of an addiction. Now that I realize, I got a thrill out of the whole the whole gearing up for a heist. So I ended up when I was 19 years old, just turned 19. I ended up robbing basically some weed dealers. Trying to get a quick come up, and because I went into the people's house, I didn't make any more than maybe $400, but because I ran into somebody's house and I took money from the people at gunpoint, I was sentenced to 13 years. I actually took that. My maximum sentence was 35 to life if I would have been found guilty for a home invasion robbery, because in California, that carries a life sentence. The combination of those two crimes. Home invasion and robbery, so I ended up taking a deal for 13 years, and while in prison, I ended up finding Islam. That's a whole nother story, but that's what led me to be incarcerated. And one of what's interesting is actually my crimey actually had a fake gun, and even one of the lawyers I talked to, and somebody on the parole board later on said, "Wow, you just did a decade for something that I would have done when I was a teenager."
Wow. So, okay. So the question now, obviously, we're going into a time in your life in the incarcerated space that can be very traumatic for people. I don't mean to bring up anything that's really, sensitive, but just gotta ask you a question. Just tell us briefly, just a little bit about your what made you interested in Islam in and of itself. Also, to another question that I have to go along with that, maybe you can put them together, is also to how is Islam viewed in prisons, and also to just in general in the African American community, maybe whether it be incarcerated or not incarcerated, from your perspective, from your opinion.
Okay, so there's levels to it. So first, my own conversion to Islam. When I first reached prison, I guess the first real deep dialogue that I had about religion was with some members of the Moorish Science Temple, and one of these individuals asked me what my nationality was, and that one simple question, he asked me, "Who are you? What's your nationality?" And it really caused me to really think. And as much as I thought I knew when I was just young in the streets, it made me realize that when it came to spirituality, religion, history, I was lost. So that really prompted me to do a lot of introspection, a lot of studying, a lot of researching of history, African history, religious studies. It made me want to learn everything I could about every religion. And I started reading a short seerah about the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I started learning about Islam. And it's interesting because I used to tell people when they used to ask me in prison, "What's your religion?" I used to tell them, "Well, I'm a Christian." That's all I knew growing up. I told him I'm a Christian, but I don't believe that Jesus is God, though. And so when I started really reading the Quran, it was answering so many of my questions. Everything that I had inside of me was answering everything, and it all started making sense. And I started studying everything I could find, everything from Odinism to Rastafarianism to Hinduism, and I realized that every other religion, it's either telling you that it's acceptable to worship something other than Allah, something in creation, or it's telling you that at your true essence, you are Allah, you are God. And Islam was the only one that was saying, no, there's only one God, you're not him. So it made sense. After I really embraced Islam and started really practicing, because that was also a journey. It took me staying away from Muslims for a long time because I thought there were too many hypocrites in prison. You might find somebody that at the masjid, he's Abdul Rahman, he's giving the khutbahs or calling the adhan, and as soon as he leaves, he's Killer T, and he has the heroin on the yard, So I distanced myself for a long time. But I was fasting by myself during Ramadan one year, and I was reading the autobiography of Malcolm X. And his story, since I was named after him, there was a connection, and his sincerity made me realize that I needed to take Islam more seriously. And I was reading Surah to Jumu'ah, and the part where it said, "O you who believe, when the call for prayer is made on Friday, make haste to the remembrance of your Lord." It hit me like a ton of bricks that I needed to connect with the Muslims. Now, once I began connecting with the Muslims, I realized that Islam is seen by different people differently. But one thing about it is that everybody can spot a faker. Everybody can spot a faker. Sincere Muslims are perceived with respect. They're treated with respect. And people who have one foot in and one foot out, they're seen as fakers. Some of the guards, they don't differentiate. To them, it doesn't matter how pious you are, you're still just an inmate. And then you have some guards who they have enough discernment to treat every person individually.
Okay. So let me ask you a question. Is it common a lot of times that Islam is seen as the black religion?
Yes, Islam is
in incarcerated space. I want to know anybody who's joining now about in incarcerated spaces. Yes.
Yeah, in prison, especially in CDCR, the California prison system, because it's so racially charged, and because the politics is driven by race. Islam, the majority of people that come to Islamic services are black, which is probably a reflection of the rate of conversion in America. Anyways, I mean, the last numbers I read was that 55% of Americans who convert to Islam are African Americans. So, and in prison, the numbers are probably even higher. So, because so many African Americans accept Islam, and historically, Muslims were kind of strong in prison at one point of time. It was almost seen by some as a black gang more than it was a religion. So much so that I've ran into Mexicans who were threatened or encouraged to go do a mission to go cause violence to somebody because they were interested in Islam, and were prevented from going to the services because of their fear for being ostracized by their people. Because it's equated with a black gang or a black religion. So if a white person or a Mexican wanted to embrace Islam, they would be treated as a traitor almost.
Okay, gotcha. So now so we went to your conversion and everything. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Before we move on to our next topic, just want to say thank you for everybody who's putting comments in. Just wanted to highlight a few. We have some support. Making prayers for all the speakers. So thank you so much, sister. One sister, Fatima, is talking about really happy about the topic that we've presented. Sister Asma as well. And, we're really seeing that these topics are for many very eye-opening, that prior to this conversation, many of us have not even had any kind of iota of that this was even going on. So really just want to say thank you so much for everyone who's commenting, and just let's keep this conversation going. I know we our main topic to discuss today. So I'll hand it back to you, Jesse.
Okay, yeah, no problem. So I want to kind of try to wanted to give a little bit of background about you, some of the experiences you go, and maybe some of the, there's different things probably that you have experienced within the incarcerated space, especially in being in that, but also to your history prior to being incarcerated, forming your mindset, what was acceptable. This is common within the Black community. This is why this was highlighted for anybody who has been with us and who's joining us. We just talked about Malcolm's history a little bit, and also to now getting out of incarceration. Obviously, how long ago were you released, Malcolm?
It's been almost 2 years now.
Mashallah, 2 years. Mashallah. Good. Alhamdulillah. So, and obviously you got into some advocacy work. I know that you're in the San Diego area, which I think you're around in a very heavily Somalian community, right? Is it kind of, or are you near that one or no?
Well, yeah. I mean, San Diego has has the second largest Somali population in the country. Outside of the Twin Cities. So yeah, I mean, basically most of the communities, Muslim communities in San Diego, if they're not majority Somali, there's at least some Somalis that are part of that community.
Okay, mashallah.
But there's a lot of Syrian,
Yeah. So I just want to get into a little bit of some of the, maybe it might be a little bit harder question, but what has been some of your experience overall, just in interacting with the community, some of the different maybe underlying superiority complex or superiority situations that are there, you know what I mean? Whether it be whether it's like people will say white superiority, Arab superiority, whatever. What's been some of your experience with this, and how has this kind of impacted the community around you and yourself as well?
Well, I think that definitely white supremacy as a result of colonialism has affected the entire ummah, right? In the West as much as it has in the Middle East, and I mean, all you have to do is watch the movie The Message, and you can see the results of this white supremacy, and the desire to portray even our own Islamic forebears as a European stock, right? So this definitely has affected the Muslims horribly. My own experience, however, has not been so much anti-blackness as it has been. I've experienced more tribalism, asabiya than anything. I've seen traces of anti-blackness. Where like you have maybe an African American brother that wants to get married to a sister that's Pakistani or something like that, and their parents are saying no, and they won't admit that it's because of their inherent racism. They're saying that they don't want their children to have a bad life or their grandchildren to have a bad life because in their opinion, blacks have it harder in this country. So I mean, I've seen that, but I've seen more Muslims favoring their people than anything else. If you go to a masjid that's run by Indians, they don't want to follow an imam who's not Indian. If you go to a masjid that's Arab, they don't want to have a non-Arab leading the salah or being the imam. When you go around the Somalis, you may have one tribe at this masjid and another tribe opens up a whole another one because they don't want to follow behind a Bantu or a different tribe of Somalis. So I mean, I think this affects us, this tribalism, even more than the black and white divide line.
Okay, good. So alhamdulillah. So and you think, like I said again, the tribalism aspect has a lot to do with obviously the superiority complex that's been put out there through colonialism, right?
Yeah,
that's one of the things. Yeah. So alhamdulillah. Yeah. So okay, to get to a deeper subject now a little bit, in your opinion, through all the different community work, number one, just very quickly, very briefly, if you possibly could, what's motivated you all overall to do some of the community work that you're doing actually?
Yeah, what sparked me was when I took my plea bargain for 13 years. I was riding up to Delano, to the reception yard, and I was, I felt like a slave. I mean, quite frankly, I felt like a slave on a slave ship with shackles around my wrist and my feet. And I was listening to people's stories, not knowing what to expect, not knowing if I was going to die in prison, not knowing. And my county jail experience was rattled with violence and riots and things like that too. So I figured my prison experience might be the same. But I was listening to people's stories. I heard one Hispanic guy saying that he was doing 30 to life for a few grams of methamphetamine because of his priors. I heard a young older black man saying he was about to do 22 years for a $20 rock of crack cocaine because of his priors. And I was just thinking that in my mind, somebody has to do something about this criminal justice system that's really just a continuation of the chattel slavery system that really founded this country. And after that thought came to my mind, I said, well, if somebody has to do it, I have to do something. If I'm blessed enough to make it out of this plantation myself, I have to do something to try to change it when I come home. That's what motivated me.
Alhamdulillah. So through the constriction, through the whole experience of modern day slavery, as they would say in many instances, and certain societal factors, it kind of led you to having this beautiful drive to really change. MashaAllah.
Yeah.
I love that.
And Islam amplified that.
MashaAllah. You know? Good. So Islam kind of codified and put it into form for you. MashaAllah. That's
absolutely.
All right. So another question now, the deeper question. This is going to be the final question that is posed to you today. What are the things that the Muslim community can do to enact long-term change and bring about systemic and meaningful change in and of itself? What do you think? I mean, we have a lot of people that talk about, kind of getting into, like I said, seeing the system as like a log, and we got to be like termites and get into it and kind of get into the root of it and then work from there. Or some people have the whole situation where, we kind of got to build anew. What is your personal opinion about how we need to tackle and make real systemic change in this whole society when it comes to racism? Number one, obviously what we're talking about, the strangle and the chokehold that's been put on the minorities, and that's actually changing not just to blacks, but also to Mexicans and many other who are actually economically deprived. But what is your opinion of the change that needs to happen, that how we can take some of this momentum and really get it to change right now?
I mean, first of all, when it comes to the racism, I think that the Muslims have to really analyze their history, not just history that goes all the way back to the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? Because we know that there were a lot of people that would be termed as black today in today's world amongst the early Muslims, right? The list is so long we can't even. It was not just Bilal, the list is long. But even in all the way up until before the chattel slavery area, right? But even in America, we have to realize that if it weren't for certain African American freedom fighters, like Martin Luther King and others, a lot of immigrants wouldn't have had the opportunity, Muslim immigrants, to come to this country, right? Because the favored immigrant, even like today, you hear echoes of that with some of the politicians in office now. Their favorite type of immigrant was a European type of immigrant that looked more Anglo-Saxon, and any other type of immigrant was like a black sheep. So you had, a lot of African American civil rights leaders that pushed the line hard to allow others to come here, right? So the idea that this whole group of people is just troublemakers and not thankful, grateful to be here. A lot of the Muslims need to check their own history, because they wouldn't be here if it weren't for some of those people putting in that work. The other thing is that we need to follow the prophetic example, right? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one of his proudest moments of his time before prophecy, the times of Jahiliyyah, was the Pact of Excellence, right? This is where his tribes came together and said that any weak and oppressed person that comes to their land, that they're obligated to help that person, right? That this is their duty, and he was proud of this even after the revelation started coming, right? So the Muslims also have a duty to assist those who are being oppressed and who are being trampled on. Also following the prophetic example of calling and inviting people to Islam, right? I've met people in my own community that grew up in America that have heard nothing about Islam, right? And we're being outpaced by these other religious groups. I felt deprived when I learned about Islam, because my whole time growing up in the ghetto of San Diego, there were no Muslims coming anywhere to tell me about the message of La ilaha illallah. But the Jehovah's Witnesses were coming, and the Mormons were coming, and everybody else was coming, right? And then, I mean, finally, as far as moving forward, I think that that we need to move more towards self-determination, right? Because we've tried, right? The Muslim community and the African American community has tried to change the system from within, right? They've tried to change it by being police officers and judges and DAs and all of these things, and our efforts have been futile, right? So I think that we need to move more towards autonomy and self-determination, establish more communities, establish more economic places, financial institutions. And if we take the prophetic example, when he went to Medina, he established a marketplace and a masjid, right? And these communities, they need to be Muslim communities, not Desi Muslim communities or Arab Muslim communities or Somali Muslim communities. They need to be inclusive, right? Just like our pious predecessors had an inclusive community in Medina. And also, I mean, once again, since this is a program of dawah, we need to not discriminate when it comes to our dawah either, because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he didn't discriminate. And one of the rare times that he was chastised in the Quran is when he overlooked the blind man to go to somebody of a higher status, right? And I mean, from that time, we don't know of any time of him discriminating in his dawah, whether he was calling a king, an emperor of a country, or whether he was calling a poor person. So this is just like us. We need to call the poor people in the ghetto, and we need to if we're in front of politicians or legislators, don't be starstruck. Invite them to Deen as well.
MashaAllah. Thank you very much, Brother Malcolm. We're going to have to transition into Sister Salma now, but we want to ask Allah Azza wa Jal to reward you and to continue to allow you to do the beautiful efforts that you're doing, inshallah ta'ala. So now we're going to get to Sister Salma. She's no stranger to the IAOC community. Sister Salma Nuruddin is current chairwoman of the Youth Empowerment Program here at the Islamic Institute of Orange County. MashaAllah. Salma is studying communication studies at the California State University of Fullerton with the intent of becoming a communication studies professor. MashaAllah. May Allah bless you with that and allow you to do that. She's been working alongside with the youth for over 5 years, and she has so many gifts and talents and abilities, and MashaAllah ta'ala. And I turn over the floor to you, Sister Salma. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you.
Jazakallah khairan. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I'm super excited to be here and to share the knowledge that I have on this topic. And by any means, Brother Malcolm, please feel free to butt in and correct me if anything I say comes off wrong or is incorrect. So the topic I was asked to speak upon is how can we use social media to counter racism and the systemic injustice that is out there. And I think that what we need to do is we need to understand the history of racism in America and the origins of our own people and our ethnicities. So to start us off, we have Christopher Columbus arrived to the Americas in 1492. And what he had done, we all know this, he's no stranger to us. He committed heinous crimes and acts upon the natives of that land. And so that's number one mistake, something happened wrong in our society, in our history. And later on in 1619, 6 to 7 million Africans were taken from their country just to satisfy labor needs. And then hence the continuation of slavery in our country. Later on, the Indian Act of 1876, which basically the land that belonged to the natives were taken from them and then redistributed back to them with rules and regulations. And since then, these rules have been amended, and it allows the government to control most of the aspects of Aboriginal life and Native life. That includes lands, resources, wills, education, and so much more. And those are only a few ways that our history has led to the support of systemic injustice. Now, moving on to the waves of immigration. Brother Malcolm touched upon this topic already, but we have waves of immigration. There's like a first wave, second wave, third wave, and I believe there's a fourth. So what happens when we have a wave of immigration is that the government sets a quota. And so this quota is a certain amount of people that they want to come into the country, and they put basically rules on them. So we can look back to, let's use Southeast Asian people, right? So people from India, people from Pakistan, people from Sri Lanka. Their rules for these people to come in and immigrate their country and immigrate into ours was that they had to be educated, right? They had to have degrees and stuff. So you have doctors coming in, engineers, people who come from a background of education. And so it's important to recognize how immigration leads up to systemic injustice as well. So keep that in mind. I'm going to touch upon it later. And let's also recognize that what Brother Malcolm said earlier is that the freedom fighters were the ones that opened a lot of doors for us Muslim immigrants. So like what I was saying before about the quota, right? So Southeast Asian people were able to come here and they were educated. And now we have to take a look into where African-American people come into play, right? They were stolen from their land. They were taken as a tool to satisfy labor needs. So we have to acknowledge that there is a lack of opportunity for our Black community, right? At least in the beginning, and even still now. So for us as colored people, for brown people, Otter people and whatnot, we have to know that this is something that's happening in our community. And now moving on to the topic of our current state of our ummah. Mass incarceration. Brother Malcolm, this is the one I want you to come in and tell me if I did anything wrong. So mass incarceration basically is when jails make a lot of money based on how many people they have in their jail systems. A lot of these are private companies that make the most money, and a lot of these people are from our Black community. And if you take a look into like our history, I would honestly really like to have Brother Malcolm come in on this one and give in some feedback. Richard Nixon's time, right? There's a top aide who mentioned that he said, you want to know what this is really about? The Nixon campaign in 1968 and the Nixon White House after that had two enemies, the anti-war left and Black people. You understand what I'm saying? We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or Black. But by getting the people public to associate the hippies with marijuana and Blacks with heroin and criminalizing both heavily, we would disrupt those communities. We would arrest the leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did. Nixon temporarily placed marijuana in Schedule I, the most restrictive category of drugs pending review by a commissioner he appointed, led by Republican Pennsylvania Governor Raymond Schaefer. So that right there, that's information that we have available to us online. And these are credible sources. You can always check back and look for the facts and where this information came from. So you make sure that you're checking the right sources. And so go ahead, Brother Malcolm.
Oh yeah, everything you're saying is right on point. And there's a reason why they call it the prison industrial complex. It's almost a clone of the military industrial complex, right? Mm-hmm. This is something where to stimulate the economy, weapons were being manufactured at a high rate in order to hire more people, in order to pay more taxes, in order to give the government more money, who could build more weapons manufacturing companies, who could hire more people, who could pay more taxes, who can build more weapons companies, right? Mm-hmm. And it left them with a surplus of weapons, right? And this is the military industrial complex. Only way to sell those weapons is to instigate wars, right? Conflicts. So same thing with prison. They build facilities in order to hire people in the middle of nowhere and Bakersfield and all these strange places. Mm-hmm. And to pay more taxes. In order to fill those jails up, they had to pass racist laws that would lock more people up. And then they can hire more people who could pay more taxes, whom they could build more prisons to house more people and hire more staff and house more people. And it's a cycle that now too many people have too much to gain for it to be dismantled, which is a whole nother subject that we need to be trying to figure out. But alhamdulillah, everything you're saying is on point, sister.
Jazakallah khairan. I appreciate the insight as well. I'm learning as we go. But going back to my second point, now with our current state of our ummah is police brutality, right? So in our past, the youth empowerment program, we had a couple sessions where we did a discussion as well on Black Lives Matter, right? And so Sister Haja Kenyatta Bakir was talking about slave catchers, and so she's actually a Black Lives Matter member, and as well as an educator. So she's telling us that, slave catchers back then, they had these badges, these star badges. And so their job was to go and basically collect the slaves that had run away. And so by doing that, they would either bring them back alive to get beaten or to get lynched and hung. So I'm sure a lot of you can make the correlation now. We have police and they have those same star badges. So this is another example of how racism is still alive within our society. And for me to put this point back again, we cannot say that as a person, I'm not Black, I'm Sri Lankan, born here. I cannot say that I had an equal opportunity, right? We have to acknowledge those things. And now touching upon racism in Islam, we all know Islam is perfect, right? The religion is made blissfully by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He knows what's best. But although with that being said, the believers are not, right? We are made flawed. We are made to make mistakes. And so that's in our creation and our nature. But the thing is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and our Prophet, our Nabi, has not left us without the information we need to move forward, right? So in the last sermon, we've all known this. The Prophet touches upon how a non-white or a white is not better than a non-white, right? And an Arab is not better than a non-Arab. And so from this knowledge, we need to do better. We need to educate ourselves. And through that, we can use social media. Now, social media will not end racism by any means. Social media should be a tool that we use to end racism. It is said in Pew Internet Research that Facebook is the most widely used social media platform by Americans who are online. Facebook constitutes 79% of American interest users. Instagram constitutes 32%, and so on and so forth. So with these large numbers, we have so much power online to get proper information out there and resources in which we can help build up the Black community as well as amplify their voices, right? You can use that platform. You can go follow Muslim Arc, donate to them, go follow Black Lives Matter, donate to them, explore the interwebs, as people say. Use our platforms for good. I know a lot of young people who might be watching this, you probably have like 500, 1,000 plus followers, right? And so these people, they're your friends, they're your colleagues, they're people you've met along the way. And is it not your duty to let them know about the injustices if they don't know? Brother Malcolm was talking about how, no one was coming to the communities where he wanted to hear about Islam, right?
Nope. Well, yeah, Sister Summer.
And a lot of the information going on online right now is amazing.
No, I'm sorry, David. Am I good now? Yeah, there was a delay. But let me take this just for a second. If there's any questions or comments that any of the viewers have, please put it inside the comment box for us. Don't anything, just bring it up. Our moderator, Amin, will take care of that. And also to please like, subscribe, and also to share this with everybody so that we can kind of get the word out. I know we're just kind of napping at the tip of the iceberg here. But these type of conversations and these type of change that we need to implement, even if it's small, but continuously that we do it, inshallah ta'ala, it needs to happen more. So go ahead, Sister Summer. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No worries. I promise I'm almost done as well. So a lot of the information that's going on right now is very credible. There are donation links that are out. There are petitions. You can text a certain number in order to sign a petition. There are companies that are out there supporting Black Lives Matter. And there are also, Black Muslim-owned businesses that are looking for support as well. And you can even tune into channels which you can speak to your local government about. We can't go to social media and say that we haven't seen anything that's been going on. But most importantly, I would want to say that voting is very crucial in our society, right? If you can vote, you need to take that as a responsibility that you have to vote for the people who cannot vote, for those undocumented, for those who are not able to partake in something that is so effective in our country, right? And also, we have to speak out about these injustices. A lot of my followers on Instagram are from my high school, they're from my college, and when I share posts with them, I'll get direct messages from them also saying like, hey, like I didn't know this was going on. Can you tell me a little bit more? How can I help? So that's one example of how we can do our part. But I just want to urge once again before I hop off is that we really need to use social media as a means to educate ourselves and educate our followings, as well as vote. It's very important. But without those things, we cannot have any upward mobility. We need to make sure that within ourselves, racism dies, and racism is first acknowledged, because we all have those subliminal thoughts and stuff that come to mind that have been ingrained to us through society, right? So we need to check ourselves. Then we need to go into our homes, have those difficult conversations with your parents. Like Brother Malcolm mentioned, like a family would not want to marry their daughter off to a black man. And for those reasons, that's why you need to have these difficult conversations. Because if you can share these things on social media, you first need to make sure your household is in check, right? So do that. Move forward with your friends. Go to your community. If your friends are saying the N-word, tell them to stop. You know what I mean? You cannot let racism breathe within your circle, and that's how we end it. Jazakallah khair.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you very much, Sister Selma. That was very enlightening, very informative, and also too, I think, very helpful to a lot of viewers. That there's some ways that we can. I think one of the best things that you mentioned, all of it was great, was about becoming informed. I just want to, before we get into the questions, I just want to kind of put a question out there. Early on, back, after Lincoln was assassinated and things of that nature, blacks were given the right to vote. They were freed from slavery after some time and given the right to vote. And that's usually mentioned in the history books, that they were given the right. But a lot of times what's not mentioned is actually what was the litmus test, or what were the questions that were asked for them to be a vote. And I'm pretty sure nobody could probably answer a lot of these different questions. Like one of the questions was, I learned it actually today, which was very interesting, was how many bubbles is actually in a bar of soap?
Yeah, I remember this.
Also, too, another one was actually, can you actually recite the whole Constitution by heart? So sometimes on the outside, there's a lot that's always said, well, this right was given and this and that, but they don't never show the critical points where the barrier was put, the actual discrimination was put, the systematic, just things to get people discouraged, or things to put things systematically in place where they wouldn't have that opportunity. One thing they say about especially a lot of our country is that it's not so much economics that's been kind of monopolized, but it's opportunity that has been monopolized. So it's something that I think that was very powerful. So I will turn it over. Are there any questions and comments that you want to highlight, Amin, before we get into the last comments and thoughts?
Yeah, so actually two questions are kind of asking the same thing, which is the first one we had was from Keith. Keith is asking, how do you think it's best to support and show solidarity to our Muslim brothers and sisters who are incarcerated? And then from Abdul Mateen, sending us a question about how can he assist the masjid with brothers who are incarcerated, and also that he has a brother who's doing 40 years in Washington State. So subhanAllah. So just briefly to answer that, there's so many things that you can do. Now, obviously, there are some limitations because of COVID-19. Some of the in-person visits are being suspended. However, I would probably think a lot of you may not know this, but you can actually help tremendously just by sitting behind your computer. If you want to find out more, I can do a whole segment just on different things you can help. But there's ways you can actually touch people's lives through helping us with our mail correspondence. We have a huge program where individuals across the country will send us letters, and we'll not only respond to letters, but we'll also send them like a newsletter. We'll send them like a greeting card when like some of the major Muslim holidays come. All that obviously takes a lot of backstage work to set the letters up and to prep them. So if you're interested at all, I would simply say visit our website, linkoutside.com. Send us an email, which is info@linkoutside.com, and we'd be happy to share many different ways to help. And if you have somebody who's incarcerated, Brother Abdul Mateen mentioned that you know someone personally, offline, send us an email with their name, with their ID number, and we have tons of things that we can send them. We can send them a letter. We can enroll them in our Islamic studies course. We can enroll them in various book donations that we offer free of charge. So these are things that are a service that we provide with all the amazing and generous donations that the community gives us. So if you do know somebody, just send us information about them, and we will do our best to engage them, because we want to let everyone know that despite their situation, they're not alone and that they're part of a community. So with that, I'd like to do our final thoughts, and if we can bring back Brother Malcolm and Sister Selma, and just some, I would say, high-level things that you want to impart upon the viewers out here to take home with us, inshallah.
You want me to go first?
Yes, that's cool.
I would say that first thing is that as Muslims, I think we have sometimes because a lot of us are so comfortable with the positions that we've gained, financially, career-wise, that we forget that this country has had a long history of turning on certain groups of peoples, whether it's the Japanese during World War II, or in this day and age, it's been Mexican immigrants at the border. That the Muslims are not exempt from this possibility from happening. And I mean, if this does happen, who is our allies? Who are our allies amongst the non-Muslims that will be there for us in the event that this happens? The same person, and this I learned in prison. The same person you may turn your back on and mistreat may be the same person that you have to depend on to save your life one day, right? And the other thing is that we all know the famous hadith about that if we see something wrong, that we should change it with our hand. If we have the ability, change it with our mouth, or hate it in our heart, right? But I mean, there's also the hadith about the angels that were sent to destroy the town, and they came back to Allah and said that there's a righteous man amongst the people of this city. Should we still destroy it? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to destroy him first, because he lived amongst the wrongdoers and he did not warn them about their wrongdoing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's not enough for the Muslims to go to Jumu'ah on Friday and think that this is enough. Because if we have our deen and our life doesn't revolve around deen, it revolves around one prayer a week, then we have to ask ourselves the question: will our grandchildren be Muslim? We may have our deen, but they may lose their deen. And at the end of the day, that there's nothing in this life that has any value, regardless of how high we get in our career, regardless of how big the house is that we buy. The only thing that matters in this life are the things that we do for the sake of Allah. Nothing else has any value at all. So thinking about those things, who are our allies? Is it a group of people actually being oppressed? And do we have a duty as Muslims to support those people? And if we're doing it, we have to regulate our intentions, all of us. Are we doing this for the sake of Allah, or are we doing it because it's the flavor of the day?
MashaAllah. Sister Selma, if you could please comment, and then inshallah ta'ala I would like to conclude with them.
MashaAllah, Brother Malcolm hit all of those. More so a reminder for myself is that on the Day of Judgment, I don't want to be looked on and asked, what did I do in these times of injustice, right? And like you said, this is a lot of people on social media are putting this out as a trend, right? Black Lives Matter is a trend. Nah, man, Black Lives Matter has been a story, a continuous struggle since the beginning. So we need to really make sure, like you said, renew your intentions when you're doing things fi sabilillah. Make sure that these are for the right intentions, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us fruitfulness in that. But more importantly, I just want to make sure that everyone registers to vote. Make sure you're registering to vote. I literally could just say it multiple times: vote, vote, vote. We need to be doing that, especially as Muslims, with the knowledge that we do have. And make sure that you are checking yourselves, you're checking your own family, even your extended family, friends, and making sure the larger community is being checked upon and not continuing to let racism live.
MashaAllah. There was a comment that was put down. I think I'm going to conclude on this point. MashaAllah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all the speakers. May Allah enlighten you and give you this nur that you already have, and increase it, because it was so informative, especially with your stories, and also too, especially with the information that Sister Salma gave of how we can be proactive and begin to learn about some of these different issues and begin to tackle some of them through the voting system or through just becoming knowledgeable. But I want to mention one thing, especially about Link Outside, is that number one, first and foremost, with Link Outside, there were some comments, how can we help, how can we assist, and things of that nature. There's a great teacher around here named Ustad Hassan Al-Wan, and he mentioned a very beautiful thing in one of the talks that I heard, and I think it's a great principle to begin to put. If you really want to make change, like you said, it can't be the flavor of the moment. Put something with inside of your life that you're going to do regularly to contribute towards these different things. And one of the things that he talked about said, if you have, say the Palestine issue or this Black issue or incarceration, especially if we want to help Link Outside, which we do need help. I know that Amin said generous donations, but we are lacking in every category of help from the Ummah, especially when it comes to the incarcerated community. I will tell it like it is. We are the most underserved, especially when it comes to Muslims. And like I said, they're a minority within a minority. Many are African American. And we have nil to none when it comes to financial help, when it comes to volunteers. And this is across the country. There's probably 2 organizations, ourselves being included, that are really involved in this on a level where we can actually begin to, at some level, help out with donations and things like that. We are behind. We are behind, and we need help.
Can I say one more thing to chime in on that?
Go ahead.
We need to support these brothers that are doing this work of assisting the people incarcerated, because for one, by supporting them, you're actually supporting your own community. If it wasn't for Islam and for having a real understanding and real access to teachers that could teach me true Islam, I may be coming to your community robbing you at this point of time, right? But because I had people that took the time to actually teach me classical Islam and to understand what it really means, I mean, it changed my whole life, and it probably saved a lot of Americans in the process, So you're not only doing yourself a good deed by supporting organizations like Link Outside, you're doing your whole community and the whole society a good deed.
Yeah, mashallah. So thank you, Brother Malcolm. Yes, it's very true. And to make something regular, even if it's a donation of $10 a month, $20, but something that's regular, taking some portion of your life, whether it be that coffee that you drink at Starbucks every single morning, or that little bit, but making an actual regular change, making a systemic change, something systematic within your life that's a regular contribution to this reality, and make it something that's a regular reminder to you. It's not something that just it's like the flavor for the moment, and then once the flavor goes away on the tongue and it goes down to the belly, you forget all about the whole digestive process, because there's still ongoing things. There's still things going on. And I tell you, these brothers and sisters will make the most impactful change that you will see in Islam. And like you said, the times when you need certain people to stick up for you, they will be there, inshallah ta'ala, and much more. So we need your help in all different facets when it comes to volunteering, special financial assistance. We do have a beautiful system in place that's allowed about 2 people to take on quite a boatload of work. We just need people to be actually aware and kind of, participate, especially financially with this situation, and also to volunteering with some of the background stuff that we do, donations, but just becoming aware of the situation, because that's one of the biggest things, is that even if you can't give anything, make somebody else aware of this. Make somebody else aware of this problem in general, when it comes to mass incarceration, when it comes to lack of us being participating in some of these social injustice initiatives that are there. Just in general, just becoming aware, and then taking just a little part of your life and beginning to do this, inshallah ta'ala. And so may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of you and everything that you do. And thank you. I thank everybody for coming, whoever joined, whatever follows the comments. Also to the people who remain silent and just make dua for us. One of the biggest things that you can do, if you can't help us physically, make dua for us continuously. Please remember us in your night prayers, remember us in your dhikr, remember us in your Quran recitation. And also to, alhamdulillah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless Malcolm in the endeavors that you do, Salma, also to Amin, alhamdulillah, for bringing a beautiful system to Link Outside. Jamal, Dawah Outreach, I know you don't see him up here, but he's behind the scenes, and all the behind the scenes guys who made this all kind of go down today and put up this, beautiful scenery so that everybody's pleased to kind of listen to this topic. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless IOC and the founders of that and the people who are here and also who have passed away. Inshallah ta'ala. سبحانك اللهم ربنا وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. Alhamdulillah, we close off today with this, and I hope that everybody remembers, what George Floyd said, that I can't breathe, and this is something that is affected a community at large and that we need to take a look at, and we have to be a part of the solution, not a part of the problem. Islam offers the solution. We just have to enact it within the side of our lives. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu.